I walked into a bookstore and saw my face on the cover of a novel, but I didn't write it. Inside were my secrets, my past, my pain, twisted and published by my own sister. This wasn't fiction, this was betrayal. If you've ever felt betrayed by someone you trusted, like this video, subscribe and stay with me, because it only gets worse from here. I was at the local bookstore, browsing through the new releases, when I stumbled upon it. A book with a familiar face on the cover. Mine. My sister had written a novel, but this wasn't fiction. It was my life, laid bare for the world to see. I felt a mix of disbelief and anger as I flipped through the pages. She had twisted my stories, exaggerating some parts and leaving out others, to make me look like a fool. I had to know more. I bought the book, my hands shaking as I handed over the money. I went home and read it cover to cover, each page a new revelation. She had written about our childhood, our family secrets, and even the most intimate details of my failed relationships. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and exposed. I had always been there for her, and this was how she repaid me. I needed to confront her to find out why she did this. I remember sitting in my living room, the book open on my lap, the words blurring before my eyes. I felt a wave of nausea wash over me. How could she do this? We were sisters. We were supposed to protect each other. But instead, she had thrown me to the wolves. I felt a surge of anger, a burning desire for revenge. I spent the night pacing, my mind racing with thoughts of what I would say to her. I rehearsed conversations in my head, each one more heated than the last. I knew I had to remain calm, to not let my emotions take over. This was about getting answers, about making her understand the pain she had caused. The days that followed were a blur. I felt like I was drowning in a sea of betrayal. I had given her everything, my trust, my love, my life. And all she had given me in return was lies and deceit. I couldn't believe it. I had trusted her completely, and she had thrown it all away. Spent hours lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, trying to make sense of it all. I replayed our conversations in my head, looking for signs that I had missed. I remembered the late nights she claimed she was working on her book, the times she was distant and distracted. I had brushed it off as stress, but now I knew better. She had been betraying me. I felt a mix of anger and sadness, a storm of emotions that left me feeling hollow inside. I couldn't believe it. I had given her everything, and she had betrayed me in the worst possible way. I felt like I had lost a part of myself, like I didn't know who I was anymore. I had built my life around her, and now it was all falling apart. Reached out to a few close friends, seeking their advice and comfort. They were shocked, just as I had been, and they offered their support. Their words helped me realize that I wasn't alone in this. I had people who cared about me, who would stand by me no matter what. I knew I had to do something. I couldn't just let her get away with it. I needed to find a way to make her pay, to show her that what she had done was wrong. I thought about it for days, weighing my options. I could confront her, but that wouldn't be enough. I needed something more, something that would really hit her where it hurt. I decided to confront her, to demand an explanation. I called her, my voice trembling with rage. "How could you?" I demanded. She tried to justify her actions, saying it was for art, that she had changed the names and details to protect us. But I wasn't buying it. I could hear the guilt in her voice, the fear that I would cut her out of my life completely. I told her we needed to talk, face to face. We agreed to meet at our childhood home, a place that held so many memories. I arrived early, pacing back and forth, my heart pounding with a mix of fear and anger. When she arrived, I could see the fear in her eyes. She knew what was coming. We met at our childhood home, the place where so many of the stories in her book had taken place. I confronted her again, this time with a clear mind and a determination to get answers. She broke down, admitting that she had done it for the money, for the fame. She had sold out her own sister for a shot at the bestseller list. I felt a wave of sadness wash over me, but also a resolve to make her pay. I spent the next few days planning my revenge. I knew I couldn't just confront her publicly. That would only make her a martyr. I needed to be subtle, to hit her where it hurt. I decided to write a response, a book of my own that would tell the truth, the whole truth. I would reveal her lies, her manipulations, and her betrayal, and I would do it in a way that would leave her no room to deny it. I started to outline my book, making notes on everything I wanted to include. I wanted to make sure I covered everything, from our childhood to the present day. I wanted to make sure that my story was told accurately, without any exaggerations or omissions. I spent weeks planning the book. I researched, I outlined, I wrote. I poured my heart and soul into every word. I wrote about our childhood, about the love and the pain, the laughter and the tears. I wrote about her betrayal, but also about my own journey to forgiveness and healing. I wrote until my fingers ached and my eyes were blurry from tears. And when it was done, I had a manuscript that was raw, honest, and utterly compelling. I knew I had to find a publisher, someone who would understand the importance of my story, who would help me get it out into the world. I started researching publishers, sending out queries, waiting anxiously for responses. And then, one day, I got a reply. A publisher was interested. They wanted to meet with me to discuss the book further. I prepared for the meeting, making sure I had everything I needed. I practiced my pitch, making sure I could convey the importance of my story. I knew this was my chance to make a difference, to give a voice to those who had been silenced. The writing process was grueling, but also cathartic. I spent hours each day at my desk, pouring out my thoughts and feelings onto the page. I wrote about our childhood, about the love and the pain, the laughter and the tears. I wrote about her betrayal, but also about my own journey to forgiveness and healing. I wrote until my fingers ached and my eyes were blurry from tears. I also spent a lot of time researching, making sure that every detail in my book was accurate. I wanted to make sure that I was telling the truth, that I was giving my side of the story. I interviewed old friends, family members, anyone who could provide insight into our past. I read old journals, looked through old photos. I wanted to make sure that I was doing justice to our story. I also had to find a balance between telling the truth and protecting the people I cared about. I didn't want to hurt anyone else in my quest for revenge. I spent long nights wrestling with my conscience, trying to find the right thing to do. The day I finished my manuscript, I felt a mix of relief and pride. I had done it. I had taken my sister's betrayal and turned it into something beautiful, something that would speak to people, that would make them think. I held a copy of my manuscript in my hands, running my fingers over the pages, feeling the weight of my words. I sent my manuscript to the publisher, my heart pounding with anticipation. I waited anxiously, pacing back and forth, checking my email every few minutes. And then the email came. They loved it. They wanted to publish it, to give it the spotlight it deserved. I felt a surge of relief and excitement. This was really happening. I also felt a sense of fear. I knew that my book would likely stir up a lot of controversy, that it would likely make a lot of people uncomfortable. But I also knew that it was important, that it needed to be said. I was ready to face whatever came my way. The day my book was released, I felt a mix of nerves and pride. I had done it. I had taken my sister's betrayal and turned it into something beautiful, something that would speak to people, that would make them think. I held a copy of my book in my hands, running my fingers over the cover, feeling the weight of my words. I also felt a sense of fear. I knew that my book would likely stir up a lot of controversy, that it would likely make a lot of people uncomfortable. But I also knew that it was important, that it needed to be said. I was ready to face whatever came my way. I attended my first book signing, my heart pounding with nerves. I was surprised by the number of people who showed up, who wanted to meet me and hear my story. Their support and enthusiasm gave me the confidence I needed to continue. The reviews started coming in, and they were overwhelmingly positive. People praised my honesty, my courage, my ability to turn pain into art. My sister's book, once a bestseller, began to fade into obscurity. People saw through her lies, her manipulations, and they turned to my book for the truth. I felt a sense of vindication, but also a sense of sadness. This wasn't what I had wanted, but it was what I needed. I also started to receive emails and messages from people who had been through similar experiences, who had been betrayed by their loved ones. They thanked me for telling my story, for giving them a voice. It was incredibly humbling, and it made me realize the impact that my book was having. I also had to face the backlash from those who didn't agree with my actions. I received hate, mail, negative reviews, and even threats. It was scary, but I knew I had to stand my ground. I had told my truth, and I wouldn't let anyone silence me. A few months after my book was released, I received a letter from my sister. She apologized sincerely and heartfeltly for what she had done. She admitted that she had been wrong, that she had let her ambition get the best of her. She asked for my forgiveness, and I found myself wanting to give it to her. I wrote back, telling her that I forgave her, but that we needed time apart to heal. I also told her that I loved her, that I missed her. I told her that I hoped that one day we could rebuild our relationship, that we could find a way to move forward. It was a difficult letter to write, but I knew it was necessary. I needed to express my feelings, to let her know that I was serious about moving on. I also had to consider the impact of my decision on our family. Our parents were caught in the middle, torn between us. I knew I had to be careful, to not cause any more pain than necessary. In the months that followed, I focused on healing, on rebuilding my life. I wrote, I traveled, I made new friends. I found a sense of peace that I hadn't known in years. I realized that revenge wasn't the answer. Forgiveness was. I had faced my demons, confronted my past, and emerged stronger. I had found my power, my voice, and my purpose. I also started to see a therapist, someone who could help me process my feelings and move forward. It was difficult at first, but I quickly realized how beneficial it was. I learned how to cope with my anger and sadness, how to let go of the past and focus on the future. I also found solace in my writing. It became a form of therapy for me, a way to express my feelings and make sense of my experiences. I found that I could use my pain to create something beautiful, something that could help others. I started a new chapter in my life, one filled with hope and possibility. I continued to write, to share my stories, to connect with people. I found a new sense of purpose, a new sense of joy. I knew I couldn't change the past, but I could shape my future. I felt a sense of hope, a sense of new beginnings. I also started to explore new hobbies and interests, things that I had always wanted to try but never had the time or energy for. I took up painting, I joined a book club, I started running. I found that these activities not only helped me relax and unwind, but they also helped me connect with others and build a new sense of community. I also had to learn to let go of my anger and resentment. It wasn't easy, but I knew it was necessary for my healing. I had to find a way to forgive, to move forward, and to live a life that was true to me. Looking back, I realized that my sister's betrayal was a turning point in my life. It hurt, it broke me, but it also made me stronger. I had faced my fears, stood up for myself, and come out the other side. I had learned that sometimes the best revenge is living a life you can be proud of. I also realized that forgiveness is a powerful thing. It doesn't mean forgetting what happened or excusing the person who hurt you. It means letting go of the anger and resentment and choosing to move forward. It's not easy, but it's necessary. It's the only way to heal and grow. I also had to reflect on my own actions and decisions. I had to take responsibility for my part in the situation, to learn from my mistakes, and to grow as a person. In the end, I found closure. I had faced my demons, confronted my past, and emerged stronger. I knew I couldn't change what had happened, but I could control how I responded. I had found my power, my voice, and my purpose. And that was enough. I looked back on the journey with a sense of gratitude, knowing that every step, every decision had led me to where I was today. I was ready to face whatever the future held, with confidence and grace. I knew I couldn't change the past, but I could shape my future. I felt a sense of hope, a sense of new beginnings. I knew I had come a long way, and I was proud of the person I had become. I also had to let go of my need for revenge. I had to find peace within myself, to forgive and to move on. It wasn't easy, but I knew it was necessary for my healing. Just when I thought the story was over, I received a call from a literary agent. They had read my book and wanted to represent me. They believed in my work and thought I had a bright future as an author. I was stunned, but also thrilled. This was a new opportunity, a new beginning. I signed with the agent and started working on my next book. This time, it was my story, my way. I was in control, and I was ready to share my voice with the world. I felt a sense of excitement, a sense of anticipation. I knew this was just the beginning. I also had to navigate the world of publishing, which was both exciting and daunting. I had to learn how to work with editors, how to promote my book, and how to build a career as an author. I signed with the agent and started working on my next book. This time, it was my story, my way. I was in control, and I was ready to share my voice with the world. I felt a sense of excitement, a sense of anticipation. I knew this was just the beginning. I spent hours each day writing, pouring my heart and soul into my words. I was determined to create something that was true to me, something that would resonate with readers. I was also determined to make sure that my voice was heard, that my story was told. I also had to balance my writing with the demands of my new career. I had to attend events, give interviews, and connect with readers. It was challenging, but also incredibly rewarding. My next book was a success. It was well received by critics and readers alike. I was invited to book signings, interviews, and literary festivals. I was finally getting the recognition I deserved. I felt a sense of pride, a sense of accomplishment. I had done it. I also felt a sense of gratitude. I was grateful for the opportunity to share my story, to connect with readers, to make a difference. I knew that my journey had a purpose, that it had a message. I was grateful to be able to share it with the world. I also had to learn how to handle the attention and scrutiny that came with success. It wasn't always easy, but I knew it was part of the journey. After a few years, I decided it was time to reach out to my sister again. I missed her, and I knew that I had forgiven her. I sent her a letter, telling her how much she meant to me and how much I wanted to reconnect. To my surprise, she responded. We met for coffee, and it felt like no time had passed. We talked, we laughed, and we cried. We were sisters again. I also had to consider the impact of our reunion on our family. It was a delicate situation, and I knew I had to handle it with care. But in the end, I knew it was the right thing to do. I continued to write, to share my stories, to inspire others. I knew that my journey had a purpose, that it had a message. I wanted to show people that they could overcome adversity, that they could rise above their circumstances. I wanted to be a beacon of hope, a source of inspiration. I also knew that my story could help others who had been through similar experiences. I wanted to let them know that they were not alone, that they could heal, that they could move forward. I wanted to use my voice to make a difference. Looking ahead, I felt a sense of optimism, a sense of excitement. I knew that there were more stories to tell, more journeys to embark on. I was ready to face whatever the future held, with confidence and grace. I knew I couldn't change the past, but I could shape my future. I felt a sense of hope, a sense of new beginnings. I knew I had come a long way, and I was proud of the person I had become. I also had to think about what kind of legacy I wanted to leave behind. I wanted to be remembered as someone who faced adversity with courage, who used their pain to create something beautiful. I wanted my life to be an inspiration to others,